Hello and welcome to the Watering Hole. Thanks for checking out this clip. Don't forget to like and subscribe because that'll make the baby Jesus cry, and I know how much you guys love making the baby Jesus cry. Okay, next up. This was sent to me by Alex DeWitt, which I believe that's progress only.
It is.
Yep. So this is an urgent notice about the principle of trade unionism. Did you know that unionism is the mark of the beast?
What? Wait, hold on. What?
This thing is, like, speaking of unhinged, this thing is unhinged. Satan is moving fast to inject trade unions into many businesses countrywide, especially in the southern states where he has not influenced before, where he has not had influence before. You know, the Bible Belt.
What?
Toyota is now one of them.
Why? Who the fuck wrote this? Hold on. Who is this from?
Alex sent me this. This is trade-unionism-is-satanic.com. So it could just be satire, it could just be anyone, but somebody had to pay to host the website, not as a forward. I know that that's a pain in the ass because I'm too lazy to do it myself. Like, somebody is paying money to host this website. I know it's not a lot of money, but like, when there's so many free services available, that says that speaks to its authenticity.
Yeah, that's fair.
Oh, you made it. You fucking made it. Oh, god damn it. You fucking Poe.
No, he said it made it. It
made it. It made. Okay. Okay. It's a site that exists. Okay. I thought you tricked me there, Alex, and I was gonna say good job because like this is. I was wondering where they were gonna go with that because did you know that unions are murder?
How are unions murder?
Oh, we'll get there. We will get there, Cyrus.
I will say this. Unions have engaged in murder before. Unions have engaged in violence.
They have, however, they have been the victims on that side of the equation way more frequently.
So what I was going to say is they have usually done so as a last resort because they have had things like the ability to feed their families stripped away from them, which would lead to their families dying. And if you are a father with a child and your options are my child gets to eat or the CEO dies, which option do you take? And think very carefully before you type the option out.
I feel like you are maybe alluding to recent current events.
God, that's so weird. There's such a I have no idea what you're talking about. But anyway, just out of curiosity, do you want to go play some Mario together?
Yeah. What about police unions? Fuck police unions.
So police
that's the one union that's not a good union.
So here's the issue with police unions, and it's a very, very simple issue to elucidate. Unions are protection for the working class. That is what their job is. Mm-hmm. Police officers are not working class. Police officers are the agents of capital. Their job is to protect money, protect capital. The union's job is to protect the police officers. So the unions are part of the capitalist class. Sorry, they are not a union in the way that we typically understand or respect them.
No.
And I recognize that it sounds like I've been reading too much theory. I promise you all, though, I've not read any more theory in the last 3 years.
Hellbound Hillbilly says, I could buy this as an Eli Bosnick website, but I can also buy this being a real conspiracy theory website. No, Eli puts way more effort into his fake websites than this. Have you ever gone to the one about how, what's his face? Michael Marshall. He's the editor-in-chief of one of the UK's skeptic magazines, not the Michael Shermer one, the good one. Eli has a whole website about how Marsh did COVID. And so it's this guy who is like a leading voice in skepticism in the United Kingdom to the point where like he has actually affected legislation regarding like homeopathic treatments and shit. Mm-hmm. And Eli's just got a website talking about how he made COVID and spread it so that he could give himself the Skeptic of the Year award again. And it's hilarious. And it is more well done than this website.
Jesus.
Marsh did COVID. Yeah, that's
Gainer. Gainer says, who is it that Cyrus was talking about? Thought Slime. Again, I think Thought Slime does really good content. I think Thought Slime's content is in line with my politics, but I do not like what I have learned of Thought Slime as a person over the years and how I've interacted. The few interactions that have happened with them, I have not enjoyed.
Okay, I'm not finding any. I'm not finding the Marsh did COVID. I don't remember the exact URL for that, but yeah, Eli puts more effort into his websites than this. Anyway, so Toyota is now one of these Mark of the Beast promoting organizations. Many God-fearing individuals may have already joined or are considering joining a trade union without fully understanding the implications of doing so. It is critical for those already involved and those considering it to recognize the very principle of trade unionism is satanic. Why is it satanic? Anything against God is of Satan and thus satanic. The principle of a trade union is directly against God and his principle in the following ways.
But how so? What?
The following ways. 1. It interferes in the God-given relationship between employer and employee.
How the fuck is that a God-given relationship? What?
Because God was on Scrooge's side, damn it. Those ghosts fucked up his plan.
I guess. I don't understand it much, but you know what? Sure, why not?
A closed shop union is murderous and is characteristically a mark of the beast.
I need to be way more high for all of this. And any bit of it.
And a subscription to a union means association with evil.
This has to be parody. There's no way this is real.
There's no hints that this is parody.
There's
no links to anything. Okay. The guy gives his phone number at the end. I am not going to scroll that far down because I don't want to dox someone.
He gave it on his own website.
I know he did, but I have more sense than him. I'm not going to do it.
That's not a problem that
if I accidentally scroll down, I will scroll back up and try and minimize that thing, but I am not going to try and dox this person. Anyway, interference in a God-given relationship. Since time began, Satan, the devil, in case you didn't know who Satan was.
Just so you know.
I mean, to be fair, if you actually understand biblical scholarship, you know that Satan just means accuser or the opposition or whatever. So, like, King David was a Satan to the Philistines. And the angel from God was a Satan to Balaam's talking donkey. So, like, Satan wasn't a person in the Old Testament. That didn't happen until the New Testament. But I doubt that that's the angle that these guys are approaching it from. So Satan has been desperate to undermine everything that is of God and rob him of man's attention and response. Isn't God omnipotent? Shouldn't that be impossible? And aren't we at 5786? So someone donated $20 to say Gay Unicorn Gary commands you to join a union. Absolutely. Gay Unicorn Gary is very much pro-union.
Join a union, start a union.
Absolutely, 100%. Satan is really the Steve in Adam and Steve. Sure, why not? He has been largely successful at thwarting the all-powerful creator of the universe. He's been largely successful.
But how could he be largely successful? Doesn't make any sense. If he's the almighty...
But God will have the final say.
Wait, so you're saying that we might actually be able to do the whole deicide thing? Sweet. Final Fantasy prepared me for this.
You didn't know about the talking donkey in the Bible? It's in the story of Balak and Balaam, where there's like a prophet who won't curse Israel in the battle coming up, but he'll predict what'll happen. And so, like, as he's going to the king that wants him to curse Israel, the donkey gets blocked by an angel, and so, like, stops or walks off the path, and eventually he's just like, hey, donkey, what the fuck are you doing? And the donkey's like, don't you see that fucking angel right over there? I ain't walking up to that. That angel's gonna kill me. Obviously paraphrased, but yeah.
No, that's definitely what he said. I was there.
Yeah, that's exactly what the donkey said. So yeah, Satan has been largely successful, but God will have the final say. Most people still end up in hell, but that's their problem. Justice says there's also Ezekiel 23:20. That's not a talking donkey. That's donkey cum. Okay.
That is a talking donkey, actually.
Horse dicks and donkey cum. That is not talking donkeys.
Nope, it spoke to me.
Okay. Sure. God has established relationships to help mankind be restful and satisfied, so that man is free to respond to God in worship. So fun fact, having Sundays off is a thing that you can thank unions for.
Yeah.
Just saying. That's not a thing that employers were doing on their own. It took unions to get that. And like, considering we're in the relationship of the employer to the employee here, I feel like that's a relevant point. I know that both of I like that both of you are just like, I know that verse. Yeah, it's my favorite Bible verse. I often get the donkey and the horse confused, but I think it's the horse's dick and the donkey's cum, but it might be the other way around. But it's and there she lusted after her lovers, whose members were like those of donkeys, and whose emissions were like that of a horse. So I think it's horse cum and donkey dicks. So I might have gotten it wrong.
I have a Christian friend who I read that verse to, and he just looked at me and said, "That's not in the Bible. That's not really there."
Clueless expert, stop spoiling it. We're getting there. We're getting there. Don't you worry about it. So yeah, they pull up Bible verses to talk about the God-given relationship between a employer and an employee. Luke 16:13 says, "No servant can serve two masters." Sure, why not? I don't see much of a problem with that. That's the one where, like, you have to choose between God and mammon, and mammon being money or love of money or whatever. And so, like, yeah, I get how that can kind of give you that whole thing where it's like, yeah, if you're serving God, you don't need to worry about what your wages will be. God will take care of you.
The wages of sin are death, though. Just remember that.
Yeah. Who art thou that judgest another man's servant? To his own master he standeth or falleth. Roman 14:4. I'm not as familiar with that one, so I'm just going to give that one a pass. Next one says, servants, obey in all things your masters according to the flesh, not with eye service and as men pleasures. Men pleasures, that sounds fun.
Men pleasures.
But singleness of heart, fearing God.
Gay?
I am familiar with that verse. You know what word is usually translated there instead of servants?
Slaves.
It's slaves. That's the master-slave relationship. That's not employee-employer relationship. And it is not saying that everyone should be a slave. Like, that like, using that to say that employees shouldn't unionize is a more than a little bit yikes. Oh, apparently it was men pleasers, not men pleasures. Darn, I misread it to be better than it is. And then the last one, again, servants, be subject to your masters with all fear, not only to the good and gentle, but also to the forward, in brackets, ill-tempered. So yeah, that's 1 Peter 2:18. That's slaves. That's telling slaves to be obedient to their masters, even the cruel ones. So, if
they beat you hard,
yeah. If your boss at work smacks you all the time with a rod until you can't get up for a day or two, according to the rules set out in Exodus 21, then that is part of the God-given employee-employer relationship, according to these people.
My ass is now prolapsed as the good Lord intended.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so Kevin Hitch says, we don't call them slaves, they're prisoners with jobs. Ain't in it, though. Yeah. That's a whole other can of worms. I mean, it's kind of the same can of worms, but yeah, no, slavery is alive and well in the U.S. But yeah. So God's principle is that the employee is solely obligated to the employer. It is to be the employer who chooses what to pay each of his employees, as the following parable in Matthew's Gospel explains.
What if God wants me to be paid more and the employer wants me to be paid less? What do I do then?
Well, it's the employer's decision. Whatever the employer decides is fair.
But what if God decided something different?
God wouldn't decide against the employer's best interests.
So God is completely at the mercy of the employer when making his decisions.
Mm-hmm, but also no.
That's not
because
how
God is a walking
work.
contradiction. If Christians were concerned about contradictions, they wouldn't be Christians.
And he's a walking contradiction.
Satan has now introduced the evil of trade unionism to purposely interfere with this God-given relationship where the employer has all the power and the employee is a slave. Like, literally in this case, not even metaphorically.
Oh boy.
This is a direct attack on God and his principles. Well, I mean, if one of God's principles is that slavery is a good thing, then maybe your God's a dick.
I guess.
And then it is murderous in character. This is where we get why it's murder. So God's principle is that man should work to eat and provide for his family. What if the employer decides he doesn't want to pay his workers enough to support their families?
Fuck him.
Because if a man should work to eat and provide for his family, but the employers aren't paying enough to do that, but it's God's will that the employers decide and not the employees, how does that work?
Fuck him.
Because, like, have you seen the fucking... like, so I know technically, according to the metrics, the economy is good right now. Inflation's at a low. Inflation's decreasing.
Nobody's fucking feeling it.
And yet wages are rising. Like, wages are the highest they've ever been or whatever. But the problem is, one single metric, the cost of housing, makes it feel like even though the economy is doing great, my economy is not doing great because I have to pay $1,700 a month for a tiny 2-bedroom apartment that can't fit all of my kids.
And here in America, the cost of groceries is also a factor.
I remember a time when I was I was living out on my own, renting an apartment, and our household income was $1,600 a month. That was the whole shebang. That was the whole income. And equivalent apartments to what I was renting then are now $1,700 a month. Like, that, I wouldn't have been able to survive. So,
that's what God intended.
Yeah, that's what God intended, though, because minimum wage rules are bad, apparently. Yeah, then they quote a bunch of verses talking about how good it is to work. I didn't look these ones up in context, but I do know there is one, I think it might be close to this one, where Paul basically says, like, hey, because I'm a preacher, you should pay me double wages.
I remember
Fennec says, I have a full-time job and I cannot afford a house in the city in which I was raised.
I remember watching a clip of Bernie Sanders and another senator, and the question of minimum wage was brought up to both of them. And for Bernie Sanders, he said that the minimum wage needs to be raised. Reason being, people still don't have enough money to survive. And the Republican said, no, the minimum wage doesn't need to be raised. Look outside. Anytime you drive across the street, you'll see signs everywhere saying, hiring now, $14 an hour, $15 an hour. Why would we need to raise the minimum wage? It's already perfectly fine. Just look outside. And it just reminded me of how much of the Republican Party's rhetoric is based in this veneer of, quote, common sense. Yeah, if you look outside, you'll see those signs, but where's the protections for maintaining that standard of money going up? Where's the actual agreements of wages between those individual workers? And more importantly, how many of those jobs actually exist versus are ghost jobs that are created because of the tax loophole we get in America for ghost jobs? None of that stuff is taken into account when you just do the look at the trees version of money.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it's gross. But then they say, once a business is unionized, the trade unionist's intention is that over time, every employee is forced to join the trade union in order to work. I actually, fun story, I used to work in the racetrack in Fort Erie. And it unionized place. I paid my union dues, never interacted with the union. I just paid my dues and was ostensibly a member of it. But when I my last year there, they closed and then they reopened, but they were supposed to be like permanently shutting down, so like everybody got terminated and given severance packages and everything. And with how long I was there, I was supposed to get not a great severance package, but I should have gotten like probably like $10,000 I think that's what other people that were there for the same amount of time as me got. I got nothing because when they hired me, they wrote me down as like I was a student. So even though I was paying union dues, I wasn't technically part of the union because I was a student employee or whatever, even though I wasn't in school and was working a second job to support my family and not being in school. And so I got screwed out of that, and I contacted the union, and they were like, yeah, no, you were hired as a student, so there's nothing we could do. And so I actually, the only thing I got out of the union was they sent me a desk calendar one year. So I like calculated how much union dues I paid over the years, and was like, this is my $400 my $400 calendar. So yeah, unions can suck sometimes. That wasn't necessarily the union's fault. But yeah, for the most part, no, unions are good. They get you more benefits. They get you weekends off. They get you better working conditions. They get you higher wages. Unions are great. But I also understand why some people would see unions as a bad thing, because they just see the dues and they don't really see anything else from it. But it's like, yeah, no, those dues make it hard for them to fire you for nothing.
Yep.
Those dues make it so that you actually have a weekend to spend with your family, and you have vacation time that sometimes is paid. So, yeah. So that union kind of sucked for me, but I am pro-union.
Yeah, my experiences with unions have been, I mean, the one union I was in was bad. It was the Kroger union. But that, again, is not, my one anecdotal bit of evidence is not indicative of how unions operate across the board for everybody. Unfortunately, we have this weird idea that our anecdotal evidence is the only evidence that should matter.
Well, oftentimes where unions fail is not actually the union's fault. It comes from the regulations that surround unions and how unions are limited in what they're able to do. So like people say, oh, the union didn't do anything for me. It's like, yeah, that's because they weren't allowed to do anything for you in that moment because people voted for conservatives or Republicans. So it's one of those things where it's like, we're going to make it suck. And then people are going to realize it sucks, and they're going to blame the thing that sucks instead of us for making it suck. So, yeah. Anyway, if employees are forced to join the trade union in order to work, that's a closed shop union, which is doubly evil because, one, it will force employees to join themselves to what is evil and to what is directly against God in order to be able to work. And two, employees who did not subscribe will not be able to work to earn money or to eat or to provide for their family. This is murder!
What?
It's murder to not willingly take a job because that job is unionized.
What?
That's what I mean. They're trying to do that thing where, like, oh, people will, like, starve to death because they can't afford to buy food because that person could only find unionized work, but he refused to work for unions because they're evil. Therefore, it's the union killing him and his family, not him for not taking a job that would have provided for him and his family because it's unionized.
Also, if you're just not willing to take union work, ask yourself why that is. There may be some other things that need to be explored besides just your unemployment.
Yeah. Yeah, no. Unions are a good thing. And then we get Mark of the Beast bullshit, which is all end times nonsense, which I don't feel like we need to go into that. But yeah, trade unions are evil, according to trade-unionism-is-satanic.com. Yeah, there we go. Clueless Expert says, if not being able to take a job is murder, they should be all for UBI, right? Or,
well, yeah, because then that would just be provided. You don't have to worry about the people being murdered by stupid stuff now.
They'd be free to not take unionized jobs because their basic needs are provided for.